Let me ask you, let me pivot a little bit towards the gag order decision that's looming in this trial. President Trump may have been, I don't know if circumspect is the word, but he hasn't maybe said as much as he did during the E. Jean Carroll trial, where he lost hundreds of millions in a civil judgment recently. But the prosecution has brought a number of issues to the attention of the judge, and apparently there were 4 additional alleged violations that were brought up today. Can you speak a little bit to that of how you think the judge will handle that? And of course, whether this is the normal course of action where a defendant is making all sorts of statements that are potentially prejudicial or against violating a gag order.
Yeah, I think, his options are, I think a maximum fine of $1,000 per violation or up to 30 days in jail per violation. I don't expect him to try to put Trump in jail, at least right away. You'd expect him to start with fines and warnings, that incarceration is a possibility if this continues. But I think, again, a typical defendant, there would have been some sanctions long ago by now, and the judge is really bending over backwards given the fact that the president is also a political candidate and is in the middle of a campaign and is making all these arguments about his need to defend himself. Even if they're not terribly persuasive, I think the judge is bending over backwards to try to, accommodate all these competing interests. But he seems to take the violation seriously, although, again, I don't know why we don't have a decision yet on the first 10. It doesn't seem like it would take that long. And there were 4 more, like you said, 4 more instance fossil violations where the judge signed an order today, but the hearing isn't until next Wednesday. So it's almost a week, when the violations could presumably continue. So he doesn't seem to be acting with, great urgency when it comes to enforcing the possible violations. But
do you think it's important for a judge to take a strong stand on that? I mean, Judge Erdogan had levied a number of fines, if I recall correctly, in the other case, and spoke strongly out against this. But as you mentioned, it seems to be a little bit more of a slower response by this judge. And of course, you have to take into consideration all the aspects of the case whenever it's any high-profile client, and it doesn't get more high-profile than this. But what is important in this kind of a scenario, because there are concerns about what it means for the case, for the jurors, a lot of issues.
Sure. Yeah, and he's got a tough job. I mean, I think the judge in general, Judge Michon's been doing a really excellent job managing this case and keeping the trial moving forward. And I don't envy him trying to do this balancing test, between this defendant and trying to avoid giving him yet something else to either take up on appeal or make himself look like a martyr in the public eye or things like that. And yet enforcing the gag order, which is designed to maintain the integrity of the trial and to protect the jurors and protect potential witnesses. It's not an easy thing to balance all those competing interests. So, but I think in general, he's been doing a really good job of moving the case forward and managing the trial.